Hi, everyone. Sorry for the silence. We didn't think ahead about some nice snazzy gallery music while we wait. But it is 7:01 and people still seem to be coming in, so I think we'll wait just a couple more minutes to get started. Does that sound good, Ryan?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Cool.
I know there's definitely a few other artists that are wanting to be here tonight.
Probably give it like 2 or 3 more minutes and then we'll just get going.
I'll break the awkward silence. Hi, Ryan's family. I've seen Ryan in a bunch of ACS meetings, but I've never met you, so it's good to see your faces.
I guess that's true. This is my wonderful wife, Nicole.
Hi.
All right, I think I'm just going to get started and people are welcome to keep coming in. Good evening, everybody. I'm Michelle Sunset, the Assistant Curator at the University of Wyoming Art Museum. Thanks for joining us tonight to view, discuss, and celebrate the virtual exhibition, Dispatches from Exile. This show is a collaborative project between the University of Wyoming College of Law and the Art Museum and was organized primarily by third-year law student Ryan Sedgeley. Before we really get going, I just wanted to start with a little bit of housekeeping. I know we've all been using Zoom and similar apps way too often this year, to be completely honest. So many of us are familiar with how these things work, but I wanted to ask everyone to please mute your microphones if you haven't already. That microphone button is at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, and thank you in advance for that. Also, I wanted to let everybody know that we are recording this program tonight. The focus of the video will be the speakers, but I want everyone to be aware that this could be shared later. So feel free to turn your camera off if you want to ensure that you're not in the recording. That button is also in the bottom left-hand corner next to the microphone. And also, if you have any questions or comments or issues throughout the program, feel free to enter them into the chat box. Ryan and I will try to monitor that as we can. And I also want to let you know that the flow of this evening is going to start with a few brief remarks, followed by a slideshow of around the 30 artworks in the exhibition. And during that, the artists can speak a little bit about their pieces if they'd like to. And then at the end, we'll finish with a Q&A in which you're welcome to unmute and participate. So now that we have that out of the way, it seems like everybody is muted and ready to go. Let's see. Again, I'm Michelle, the Assistant Curator, and we're here to see the artwork created by folks affiliated with the College of Law for the virtual exhibition Dispatches from Exile, which is hosted on the Art Museum website. So Ryan or myself will put that link in the chat box at some point if you haven't seen it already. Last spring, when many of us first found ourselves in quarantine, the internet was flooded with free art and art making tutorials. Museums like ours sprung into action to ensure that we could still serve our communities. We were faced with the question, if we're not open to the public, how will we meaningfully connect people with art? I'll spare us all a cliche quote about the healing powers of art, but I will say that I truly believe that making it and appreciating it are powerful ways to understand ourselves and the world, to both see reality more clearly and also to escape from it when we need to. So when Ryan approached the Art Museum this summer to propose an exhibition for the College of Law to really express their feelings and reactions to the current state of the world, I jumped at the opportunity. At a time when the campus suddenly had to cancel in-person classes and the museum had to close to the public, this proposal was a great opportunity to work with the UW Law community through the pain of the distance and the potential loss of connection, and to continue to share our passion at the museum for connecting people with culture. The works in this show really do kind of capture the range of emotions that I know I at least have been experiencing for the past 6 months. There are several pieces that reflect on death and mortality. There are works that express happiness and the development of new artistic practices. There are poems that speak to these experiences as well. One features an encounter with Ted Bundy that spoke to the amount of true crime documentaries and podcasts that I've consumed in isolation. In another poem, you'll hear that captures the ephemerality of our life experiences. Overwhelmingly, though, I found that these works show how fortunate many of us are to be riding this out in Wyoming, one of the least populous states with an abundance of natural places to explore in perfect social distance. This exhibition is packed with gorgeous photography from across the state and beyond, which we're excited to share with everyone. And I am really grateful to have been a part of organizing this. Thank you to Ryan and the College of Law for working on this really timely show. And now I'm happy to pass the virtual mic to Professor Melissa Alexander. Thank you.
Thank you. And I really can't say enough positive and gratitude to Ryan for envisioning this. And, we had started talking almost a year ago about trying to do an art show through the law school. And we had these great, I thought at least great, right? But great plans. It was going to be part of Law Week, and we were going to have reception, and we were going to get some local artists to come in. And so it'll be law school, but also local artists and maybe some art law. And I can't deny that when COVID struck, I was like, I don't know, Ryan, I'm out. Or I would love to see you do it, but let me know. And, Ryan was really incredible. Not only did he come up with these ideas, but he would send me these inspirational emails about like the birds and the animals where he was. And I really feel like it was such a blessing to me. Not only am I so fired up to see what's come of it and the different artwork from the writer community, but to be part of someone who responded to what I will characterize as setbacks, because I think that's how I see COVID, with such grace and such wonder for the world around him. And that really was, so thank you, Ryan, for bringing this to us, but also for sharing the world outlook that at least you were able to share with me, because that was much appreciated and much needed over the summer. Thank you, Michelle, for your interest and willingness on behalf of the Art Museum to take this project and run with it. Because I do think this is an exciting opportunity for expression and for inspiration. And thank you to all the artists who participated, because obviously it's not an art show without the artists. And I know I see some of my other colleagues here, as well as students and family. And it is such a time where we all need art and the connection and inspiration that is embodied in those projects. So I, for one, am very excited, and thank the artists for sharing that creativity and connection with me tonight. And I don't know who's next, but I don't want to talk too long because I know everyone is here to see the art. You're like, that was 2 minutes ago.
Well, thanks, Professor Alexander. I wanted to say just a couple words and then we'll get started. So I want to first thank Michelle Sunset from the UW Art Museum for all her hard work she's put into this exhibition. She's organized the actual show, and she's represented the Art Museum so well, and they've fully embraced this project by hosting it on their website and really putting the energy into it and believing in it. I'd also like to thank the University of Wyoming College of Law, Melissa Alexander, for sponsoring this exhibition and supporting its students and faculty, who are all working through this together, trying to get through the pandemic. And finally, my deepest appreciation to all the artists who have submitted art. Again, without you, this wouldn't happen. Like Melissa said, the show had its origins over a year ago when I first approached her about the Art in the College of Law building. And as we talked, the idea of having this student faculty art show came together after I discovered so many of my fellow students and professors there at the College of Law were artists themselves. So like we said, we had talked about creating an art show with a real reception and music and food and wine at Law Week, and then COVID changed up everything. We got separated. We all went online right after spring break. And then I noticed that I was coping with the pandemic through art, and noticed a couple of my other classmates were doing so as well. And with that, I thought we could all be united through art across the distance. And so I reached out to the Art Museum, and as you can see tonight, the idea has finally come to full fruition. Thanks again to the help of Michelle and the College of Law. So with that said, I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight. It feels so good to be connected with our community again. And we will now start the presentation of the artwork. As Michelle said, a few artists have requested to speak, and some of the poetry will be read by the authors themselves when their work comes up on screen. When the presentation is finished, we'll take any questions for artists, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thanks for being here.
Do you want me to say a few things about this one?
Yeah, if you'd like to speak, go for it. These are your.
Okay, this is my piece. One of my pieces. You'll see there's a theme to all three of the things that I've done. They're all starry. And all three of the pieces I am showing tonight were taken during the COVID break. They were all taken this past summer after COVID hit and we were all isolating. And the first thing, of course, all of us had to go virtual and go indoors, and that was back in March. And when the weather finally got good enough to be outside, the first thing I wanted to do was go outside. That was a safe thing to do. You could be away from other people and social distance. We're good at that in Wyoming, social distancing. So I went outside with my wife and we went camping. And you may recognize, some of you may recognize that overhanging rock is at Vitavu. where we were camping one night. And I just, you can see there's a glow down at the very bottom of the frame. It's another campsite. Somebody has a campfire going or a lamp or something. This is how we cope in bad situations. We need to go out into the wilderness and look at the stars and realize that this too shall pass. We are in a bad spot, but it's a temporary thing. And there's a lot of permanence out there in Vitavu and in the stars that just settle the soul for me. And that's why I took a bunch of star pictures all summer long. Thank you.
So this is actually one of mine. This, while looking very scary and reminiscent of death, which is, it's a depiction of, it comes from, the actual imagery is from a pressing, a 1945 pressing, I believe, of Albert Camus' The Plague, which it's a situation very similar to what we're all dealing with now, not only of having this disease, this pandemic descend upon our society, and how the characters in the book deal with it and how we are dealing with it, but also the kind of subtext of the books, which is dealing with the plague of authoritarianism, or in Albert Camus' time, Nazism during the occupation of France. For us, it is dealing with new forces of authoritarianism and fascism in the world. So as I was reminiscing on this book and creating this piece, COVID was hitting, and it was something that I wanted to adapt to our current situation, and etched this into copper and patinaed and textured a plate of aluminum and riveted it all together, and painted the etching, of course. And the idea behind it is really to not take life for granted, to live with vigor, for death comes ripping, because there really is no guarantee of any future, only what we have. And so it's really more of a positive piece than anything, even though it looks rather dark. It's about living life as fully as you possibly can. And our dog Sierra is chiming in a little here.
It doesn't look
Catherine?
like Catherine's here. There are a few poems in the exhibition that I think if the author isn't here to read them, I think we'll just let people go back to them on their own time.
Oh, I'm here.
Great. Do you want to read?
Sure. I'll just read one. It was nice that you mentioned my Ted Bundy poem, so I guess I'll read that one. I was feeling trapped, so that's where these themes come from. But thank you for having this, Michelle and Ryan, Professor Alexander. Thank you. This is so much fun. So turns out it was Ted Bundy, which would explain why he missed the turn into her neighborhood, why there was no passenger side door handle in his T-tan Beetle parked under magnolia trees. Turns out he was just headed that way. Concussion sick, she's doughy, and they're driving up some steep canyon road. He's done this before, corralled a rangy breath into a slip knot. There is no one, and there is no door handle, and dead dark squares puzzle about her eyes, undoing herself from the day. There must be too much of her to be put in or pulled apart or put aside. She remembers the painting on the ceiling was titled Chastity Locked in a Tower. Silken, top stitching over the vertical bone channels in her corset, Chastity hunches heartward, breath cropped like cattails. She's disrobing, dropping her collection of bell tongues and bows, loosening herself like alluvium. Seaside and hilltop tower. She has two brains, two different dreamers at a time, two versions for every sunset, like two peachy, ballooning bridesmaid sleeves. She wonders if she is the sea needing to be lit, or if she is an organed body of water already lit from inside. She wants more than two ways of thinking, about the largeness of lust and about the peachiness of the sea at sunset. She's sure they'll pry the tower down, dig up her brick pile and bones. They tried desperately to preserve her. Thank you.
This is another one of mine. Also, you can see the theme of stars, but this one is more about the comet. We had some reminders over the summer, again, that even though COVID is a dangerous thing, and it is scary, and it is changing the way we live, nature has a way of taking care of us. And that comet was a beautiful thing to see. The foreground here is Lake Hattie, which I think is currently still not on fire, but it's in danger right now, which is kind of scary. But I wanted to go out and I realized that if you take pictures of the stars, they're all the same. What changes is the foreground. So I wanted to get a good foreground. This is shortly after sunset. And so I drove out there one night, and this is what I saw. The camera, and you'll see this even more clearly in my last piece, that the camera sees more than the eye does. To the naked eye, you could sort of make out a faint little brush in the sky. It wasn't really all that clear as to what it was. But when you set the camera on a tripod and open the lens for 5 to 10 seconds, it gathers a lot more light than your eye can, and things become much clearer. So this is a beautiful comet. It's more beautiful in the camera lens than it was to the naked eye, but still, it is not just another reminder that nature is a wonder, and we need to be outside and appreciating what nature as much as we can. Thank you.
It's probably worth saying too that when the artists aren't here, we're just gonna leave it up for a few seconds so people can get a good look. I'm not sleeping behind the wheel over here.
And I'll just say for Matt, who's a couple of these photographs, he's a real avid outdoors person. He loves hiking and climbing mountains, and he's always sharing these wonderful photos and stories of these places.
So that's one of my photos. That was right as the whole COVID stuff was starting and wasn't really a big issue yet, at least in Alaska. But I had just gotten a nice fancy camera for a Christmas present, and I love going outdoors. And in the summer times, I work for the Alaska Department of Fish and Game doing sheep research. And so I thought it'd be the best way to put my new camera to use to go up into the mountains and try to find a sheep. And that's when I started to learn how difficult it was to use those fancy cameras with all the buttons when everything is white and it doesn't know what to focus on. But after a lot of time trying to figure out how all the buttons work. This was probably the best photo I got from that trip, so that's why I picked this one.
Also, just say for Rachel, she has such a great positive personality and such wonderful energy that, like, her photos, I think, come through and express her personality. I think those are the folks here that know her will see that reflected as well.
So this is one of my pieces, and they're together. So when COVID started, my fiance who's on and I were able to buy a house somehow, and so we spent a lot of the time taking care of our new house, our first house together, and that involved a lot of painting of our house actually, and so I really took what I put on the walls of our house and put it into art, and on canvas specifically. So I used paint that we either put in our house or that I sampled that I considered using. And this piece really to me was a summary of the year of like starting so bright, like every new year is, and then just gradually as the realities of COVID hit, and other things like the wildfires hit in the summers, just descending almost down into darkness. So that's what this piece is. And then the next piece in conjunction is kind of being in that dark space. But then I'm naturally an optimistic person, and I'm always trying to find, the beauty or something positive in any situation. So having these little bursts of moments of hope, moments of joy, like buying our first house together, things like that. And I love just the texture of everything because everything is multi-layered. Nothing's actually one layer.
So this is one of mine here, and this painting kind of collage really speaks directly to so many of the, I would say, the awakening, the reawakening and addressing of the race disparities and racism in our country right now, that really erupted during COVID. It is based off of a conversation I read in a book years ago between two young Black men, one who was very politically aware, the other one who was becoming more politically aware. And in that conversation, the more politically aware man says to the other that, thinking about words and how words define who we are in our existence. And, he asked him about, what does it mean to be Black? What does it mean to be white? What do those definitions mean? What if you, your whole life, thought that, the term Black reflected? They looked it up in a dictionary and looked up the definitions. And, you can see it written here, or you can look at it later, but, they're all negative connotations, evil, and, bad references. Whereas white was all good, it was all pure and positive. And at the end of the conversation, they say, well, who wrote that dictionary? Well, it was written by a couple of old white men with their very specific worldview and shaping reality through words. And so it's really speaking to the power of words and to reflect on that. And I think if you take time to look at this painting and really think about if your life, given that I think pretty much everybody here more or less is would be white or white passing or whatnot, how would that affect you if that defined your existence, the very basis of your existence of who you are with no choice? I think it's a powerful thing to think about. And just as a construction, it's all these pieces of paper were cut out, painted, and then each letter was stamped in acrylic paint. The background is made of aluminum glued and riveted to a piece of wooden board. All right, so this is my last piece in this show. This is a part of a broader series of paintings I've done of contemporary political figures. They are all kind of reductionist abstract paintings, trying to distill a person or character into simple shapes, colors, and patterns. It's all done in watercolor, and this one is a representation of AOC, who I certainly look up to and see her as a person who is holding multiple cups, multiple viewpoints of the world, very inclusive, and is a burning bright flame of the future of the Democratic Party.
So this is another one of mine. I was starting to get a little bit better with my camera by the end of or I guess this wasn't really the end of the summer. This was more kind of in the middle of the summer. I was out at a friend's cabin and we were quarantining there for a while because in Anchorage, everything was shut down. So a lot of the people that I know up there, everyone just would go to their cabin for most of the summer. And I would go to friends' cabins and there was this black bear laying in the yard and it hung out there for a couple hours. And so I was able to go out and try to get a bunch of images of it. And this ended up being my favorite. So I figured I'd share it with everybody.
So I'm a little late to the party. I don't know if I'm just supposed to kind of explain my artwork or if Ryan, you said you maybe wanted me to read it. I'm not sure what you wanted.
I'm Michelle.
If you would read,
yeah, if you would read it, that would be so great.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I was actually chatting in Zoom with a fellow student just about all the craziness that's going on. And she had asked me about the fires in Colorado, and we were just chatting back and forth about all this stuff. And this is the poem that she encouraged me to write and kind of came out of this. So what if it's a global pandemic, or this level of uncertainty is cruel? No one cares about your mask acne, wear the thing, and finish law school. There is hate everywhere that you look, violence of mind, body, and soul, but you need to finish your studying. You forget you're not in control. You must have all the opinions, perspective on Corona, Kamala, and Kyle, but you don't know what you're talking about. Go back to law school for a while. You're exhausted from within and without, but this meme is ironic and funny. Use it to cope with your crippling depression. Did you expect only days that were sunny? Your state is on fire in 5 different places, but you need to keep up on your reading. The transition to Zoom will be flawless. Prepare for cold calls. We don't need assigned seating. It doesn't matter what happens this year. You promised you'd finish law school. It's a goal you set out for yourself, and you're determined to see it through. Existential crisis galore, your hopes are still valiant and true. You will find that regardless of anything, your knowledge can't be taken from you.
Okay, this is the last of mine. Another one from that same Vidavoo camping trip from the first of my pieces. One of the things I love about Wyoming is the beautiful dark sky, and you can see the Milky Way on most clear nights. So I wanted to get a picture of the Milky Way, again, because of the sense of wonder and the sense of how small we really are. We think we're a big deal, but these stars are billions and billions of light years away. The galaxies in the distance are even farther. It's just incomprehensibly large, and compared to us being here, it's just amazing how small we are in the grand scheme of things. But what I think makes this picture is, again, the foreground. You can see off to the left corner, lower corner, some of the rock formations that some of you probably have climbed on at Vita Vu. The streaks along the bottom are I-80, some truck traffic on I-80. But the thing that really caught my eye, when I took the picture, I could see a little bit of a red glow down in the lower right-hand corner. And I knew that from the distance that was the Cameron Peak fire in Colorado. This was taken just a few days after that fire got started, so it wasn't super big at that moment. But again, the camera sees more than the eye. You could make out the fire faintly to the naked eye, but on the photograph, it comes through much more clearly, as do all the stars. This is kind of a combination of the good and the bad, the beauty and the ugly. The fire is an ugly thing. It's kind of cool to look at, but it just hides the fact there's something ugly going on there. But even that shall pass, because the cosmos are still there. They're still big. They're still more powerful than anything we can do.
This was my third photograph. A couple of my friends up in Anchorage are really into birding and like photographing different kinds of birds. And there was a ton of people that went out to this it's like a marsh near town when this bird showed up, because apparently it's not its typical range. And so every time a bird comes up that's not typically in Alaska, all the bird watchers go out and check it off their list. So I figured, since it was kind of a special moment, that I would submit the bird, since it was not in its typical area.
Well, so that concludes the artwork that was submitted to the show. So thank you all for coming and viewing those. At this point, if anybody has any specific questions or comments about any of the specific pieces, or just in general, it's now kind of an open table. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask. Try to just do this as orderly as possible, I suppose.
I just want to say thank you to everybody who put this on and who submitted artwork. I'm like a transplant 1L. I'm from California originally, so I'm used to all this creative expression. And I felt really stifled, like being somewhere where I don't know anybody or anything like that. And so seeing everybody's kind of own interpretations of stuff like really made me feel at home again. In terms of, you know, law is not just the black letter. You're just studying to learn terms and how to argue. And so for me, this was really uplifting. And so for everyone who put this on and submitted stuff, I want to say 100% thank you all very much, because you guys just kind of like made that for me, and like this is going to be an inspiration for me going forward to see if I can like try and recreate this in years to come. So thank you very much.
I've got a technical question for Matthew. How long of a lens were you using? You had some beautiful pictures of wildlife. I hope you weren't that close to the bear. I'm assuming you had a very long lens. Could you tell us a little bit about the technical side of the photographs?
Yeah, so while working for Fish and Game in the summertime, we do Dall sheep research, and we basically grid the side of a mountain, and then the ewes are having issues getting pregnant, and they think it's due to nutritional like deficiencies. So we watch the ewes feed into a gridded area, and we have these like really fancy, nice cameras, and we zoom in and we take high definition videos of exactly the plants that they're eating. And then we go collect those plant samples, and then we run like isotopic analysis and cross reference it with their blood samples. Um, but I loved having such like a powerful camera. It has a 125 power zoom, and it's called a Nikon Coolpix P1000, I believe. And I mean, you can zoom in like super incredibly far. And so I ended up getting that camera from my dad as a Christmas present. And I'm not the most like fancy knowing like how to change all the different settings. I most of the time just am on the automatic setting and let the camera do the work for me. Um, but yeah, hopefully I'll get better with the camera in years to come. Did that kind of answer your questions?
Yes, with that much of a zoom, did you also have a tripod? Because those are very sharp and very clear photographs, and it's hard to handhold a long lens like that.
Yes, and we do have a tripod that we use, both when we're doing our fish and game work as well as when I'm just out on my own. And I noticed though when it's that far away, any wind at all like really messes with the images, as well as like heat waves up in the mountains with the glaciers and stuff. You get those temperature differences that really kind of puts the waviness in photos.
Well, I'd just like to say both to Catherine and Autumn that your poems were fantastic at really, I think, expressing the feeling of what this has been like. And it was so good to hear you actually speak your poems. You know, you read it and it comes across one way, but actually hearing you read it yourself, like, really drives some deeper emotion home there. So thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. This has been great. I just appreciate that you put this together. So thank you.
That was kind of what I was going with my overall is like, Ken, I loved your pictures because it like brought me back into that time when I was with my dad, who's an Eagle Scout, and he like used the flashlight uh to show us constellations. I'm like, oh my God, when's the last time I saw the stars? And like, you know, Ryan, your print of the plague bill, like that just brought me back to undergrad of doing medieval lit and everything. um and then Catherine and, oh sorry, I'm spacing on the other person's name, of who read their poetry, like just kind of centered me in like today's day and age. you know. And then even Matt, like your wildlife photography was on point, and it was so beautiful, where it was like, oh yeah, if I could go out and see that, that would be awesome. And then there was the other Matt that had those beautiful landscapes, and so all of that like really created an experience where it was like, don't kill yourself over the black letter law. Like, still remember, you have a life to live even in all of this. And so I love you guys so much for like putting your hearts and souls out there to share this with everybody.
If I could add a brief confession on the first photograph, the one that's the kind of for the title slide, the picture of the overhanging rock at View. I cheated a little bit there. I actually used a flashlight to light up that rock formation. Everything else was just whatever the camera could see, but I couldn't see that. Oh, I wanted the overhang in the picture, so I lit it up with my flashlight while the shutter was open, just to make sure we could see it. So sometimes you do a little bit of trickery to get the image that you really want.
Ryan, I absolutely loved all of your pieces, but the first one was so powerful. And I love I love the medium you used and how much different work you put into it. And like you said, it looks scary, but it actually does have a lighter message. So I loved that. I just wanted to let you know that was amazing.
Well, I'll just ask if there's anything else anybody wants to say. Otherwise, we're about at 8 o'clock, and we can close this off. And again, I just thank everyone for being here and supporting this, putting yourself out there, and submitting artwork. This has been just so fantastic, and really is a bright spot throughout this entire time. I feel so good here tonight with all of you, and that was the whole point, is just to get us connected as community again. And I think we've done that here. Yeah.
And thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Michelle, for putting this together. This was fantastic. I love seeing everybody's work. We need to do this again. This needs to be an annual thing for sure.
If I can jump in too, I just wanted to thank everybody for participating. It was so hard going through the slides not to jump in after everyone and talk about how great it was and how excited I was to see it. This has been such a like warm, magical evening of connection with the law school, who I haven't really interacted with much up until this point. So this has been really great for me too. And if everybody would humor me with a tiny art museum plug, if you want more art and connection, we actually are open to the public again. And we have 3 new exhibitions that are up. So I would love if all of you would come and see us. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you have a great rest of your evening. And yeah, check out the exhibit online. It's down in the comment box near the top. And I hope to see you all around soon.